Let's get started, guys. Yay! To the one person here, you are a warrior for coming here out all on your own. Anyways, okay. So let's get started. So I just want to preface, like, grease pencil is its own kind of niche thing, but I hope this can expand a little bit beyond just grease pencil, because 3D as its own is like a very powerful tool to have. So I hope this demo will help like expand your skills and train your cinematic eye and help with problem solving. And by skills, I'm like saying not to just fully bank on 3D. Like, you should still have the fundamental 2D skills to make sure that you know how to draw, so that you can integrate both as like a hybrid option to maybe streamline your process or make sure that you don't have like blatant perspective errors. So like when you have these 3D skills, it makes it very highly desirable, because if you have that like working knowledge of a software and you are like competing against someone who might not have that willingness to try and branch out, that is a good sign for you and not for them. Also, like when you're working 3D, it helps you think about how you're going to set your scene in like real space and having depth in your work. So when you design in 3D, you get to think like through the lens, like in the camera specifically, how you want to set up your shots. I think that's a really important thing, because at the end of the day, like when you design things, you are designing it so that people can see it through like either the film or like the aspect ratio of the game. Like, so when you design through 3D, it helps you think with that kind of perspective in mind. And also just problem solving is a nice thing to learn too. Like when you have these options given to yourself, like you can start making decisions to better influence your workflow and make sure that you can use your time effectively. What are the benefits of 3D? Basically, like 3D is not a cheat, but a means of efficiency. So when you use 3D models, they're more prone to be error-proof, and you have less issues with like perspective or just any errors. This is work by Ari Zritsky, alumni from SCAD, and they have what they were. Oh my god! Okay, that's so cool. Anyways, so their sorry, their work is incredibly good for reference, because they use 3D to boost their efficiency when they paint over their work. So when you see like they do their sketches quickly, roughly in 2D, like maybe in Photoshop or something, and then they use that to tweak it in 3D and paint over that afterwards. But like when you have that polished foundation, you don't have to worry about errors in your perspective or being told that you like maybe aren't technically skilled enough to get the work done like at a base level. Like it can also be reused. Like let's say if the director of this project were like to say that they wanted the angle to be a little lower, or they wanted to zoom out more, or any minor tweak to the camera, if you were told that and you only use 2D, you would be crying right now, because you'd have to start over from scratch. So when you have 3D, you have something to back yourself on, and you don't have to worry about how much you have to step back as much. So when you have to make iterations of your designs, you have more to fall back on. So with that said, like remember that at the end of the day, your time is your money, and that's what you're getting paid for. So when you make these decisions, think about how it's going to save you time and get you paid. So when you think with 3D, make sure to have a plan. So don't feel pressured to, when I'm saying like all these things about 3D, don't feel like you have to fully change to 3D. Make sure that you always keep your design skills ready and at your disposal. So design with 2D in mind and then integrate it into 3D. Unless you just are really comfortable with 3D, but 2D is always going to be like great for concept art. Don't let that change. But you should always just also gauge like what level of intricacy you want to use your 3D with. So when you have designs that are like, for the most part, kind of simple, like these are arguably preliminary cubes and rectangles in perspective, you can decide to only like model it as such instead of needing to go into the intricate levels of grooves and whatnot, and you can draw over that, or like in my demo you can grease pencil those details in. You just don't want to over model what you don't need, and if those details can just be better done somewhere else instead of 3D, you should always figure out what's the best way for you. So what 3D options are there? There is Maya, and that is like the most, what you'll be learning the most of at SCAD if you take 3D classes. It's the most industry standard software, and it's great for 3D modeling. Some classes, especially in game, I know, you through Unreal Engine, which has a really great lighting system, and it also is really great for plugins. I'll talk about kit bashing later, but I think the lighting system is really good for that as well. There's also ZBrush. That is really good for highly detailed organic 3D models. So when you want to sculpt things instead of just model like hard surfaces, that is a really good program for you to use. And it's free through SCAD. So when you take classes, you'll like have those available. And then lastly, there's Blender, which you won't really learn at SCAD, but it is always there as an option. And in Monty, they have Blender in the computers already. So if you want to try it out for yourself, either you can download it on your own computer or you can use it at Monty. But it is free and it's very beginner friendly as a 3D modeling software. And it also is kind of a jack of all trades. It kind of does everything at once and you can do whatever you want with it. So if you are interested in taking 3D classes at SCAD, here's some that I could recommend, either by having taken it or having friends that have taken it. So the intro classes are Game 236, and I actually probably should have added Anim 190 because you learn a little bit of Maya there, but 190 will teach you how to do very, very basic like 3D modeling for animation. But I think the better class to take if you want to really learn skills in 3D is VFX 210. Game 236 and VFX 210 teach you very similar things, but you will be doing very different projects based off of it. For Game, you will be doing a lot of faster turnarounds. Like you'll be told to do a lot more faster, but you will have like really nice individual props and things that you've like modeled and rendered and lit. But in VFX, you are setting everything up to be one major environment. So you are building everything more like cohesively together. So it's more about what you desire, but both of the classes are great. If you want to learn ZBrush, Game 333 and Game 433 are like really good for that. I know everyone like sings their praises about Parrish, and I think that is a really good class to learn, both for ZBrush and also anatomy, because your first class you are basically like building the fundamental anatomy of your figure before you get started with anything else. So those classes are really, really tough, but very, very rewarding. And if you want to learn more about Maya modeling, like you can do that through VFX 349, which is like a hard surface modeling class that's more expanding on your previous like skills and making sure that you have like more correct models. So let's think about like what kind of 3D level skills like that you can create. So the different range of production readiness. So here we have like a blockout that is the most foundational thing you can make in an environment. And it basically establishes the setting in its most simplistic form. These are great. You should always consider if this is all you need. Like if you want to just do a blockout and then move straight on to like using your 2D like skills and go from there, that is always an option. Blockouts are really nice, especially I know a lot of people use them for like if you have to do layouts and you give it to different people and you give them a blockout, like it sets the standard for how people should draw the setting or the environment that you're in without needing to like guesstimate how that would look in different shots. So it is a really nice, quick, easy, and efficient tool to set up a quick shot. There's another option, which is kit bashing, and I'll talk about it a little bit later. But basically, kit bashing is really nice for setting up a quick shot that lets you utilize existing assets without needing to model anything, but just setting it up, kind of like mashing things together and making something your own. This is really good for people that want to like paint over their sets and just kind of have like a mood for their environment without needing to actually set the time to make stuff on their own. Because there's a lot of existing assets online, you can just do that instead. And finally, if you really want to, you can go through like actual 3D route to learn like how to make actually production ready assets. If you are going for something really realistic, this is maybe the way you might want to go about it. Because while you might be technically skilled in 2D, 3D might also just be the better way to show your work. So you'll need to learn more about the 3D pipeline, but it will help you with really highly detailed assets in the end. So to better explain kit bashing, because I think that might be a new concept for some people, basically kit bashing is a process of taking multiple parts of 3D models from a set of consistent objects and combining them to create a completely new object. So like I showed earlier, like kits come in sets of like multiple objects, and you can take those and just mash them around together however you want. When you do kit bashing, it's important to remember that you aren't just taking one kit and using that exclusively as your environment, because kind of to quote like steal from an artist, like you should steal from many and not just from the singular, or else you are just stealing from someone's work. Make sure that you're making your assets unique in the way that you want it to be instead of just letting it be someone else's material. But when you do it correctly, you can see that it makes for a really good foundation for what you want to like touch up later. Especially if you do it in Unreal, the lighting software lets you do really dynamic shots and really set up a final like render. Where you can find these models for kit bashing, there's many different locations, but I'd recommend these four. So I know Unreal Engine has its own fab market, and it cycles out 3 assets for free in the span of a little bit more than like under a month. So there, you can just check it every now and then, and it has 3 free options to download. And when you download them, they will be stored in your library without needing to go and change anything. Like once you buy it for free, it stays with you forever. But they will go back to paid assets as soon as their like limited offer expires. So just constantly checking that can be a nice way to add to your repertoire like slowly and gradually. Otherwise, you can also check Sketchfab, and that lets you has like a more open-ended like website for just anything like 3D models. You can find a lot of things for free, and sometimes you can find things for like paid, but you can just find a lot of different varieties of resources from Sketchfab. Kitbash 3D is one that I don't honestly know too much about, but I do know it's very similar in Unreal, and you can find a lot of free assets there occasionally, kind of the same format of like 3 new assets in a monthly basis. So if you want to look there as well, you can. And then finally, there's ArtStation Marketplace, and ArtStation is just good for a lot of people that want to do 3D stuff as like in general. So for the most part, the quality of work you can expect there is relatively high. But for the most part, they likely will not be free. But if you do have the time or money to spare, you can try there and find like good assets for yourself. And it's important to recognize like when you download kits, they've probably done a lot of stuff to those models, so it will take up a lot of file size. So you should consider like what you need from a model and maybe like trim down what you actually want from a kit and then decide from there. Because like if you keep all the files and you like have a collection of maybe like over the span of a year, that file size can add up like really fast and really quickly. So think about what you want to keep and what is helpful for you. So the power of Blender is that it's free. So that's like the big one. But if you look like through Zach Retz, I think the biggest like inspiration for me for wanting to learn 3D is just how like useful it is in terms of varying uses. Like when you model things in Blender, it just it's a really nice and easy way to like jumpstart your way into 3D. You can also use a lot of plugins to like that a lot of people online have explored and maybe like programmed for themselves. Because it's a free software, a lot of people have explored the different varieties of usages for Blender, and you can find different ways that you can integrate it into your own special, unique way of using it. Grease Pencil is really good, and I'm going to demo this mostly through like finding compositions, but it's really good for deciding how you want to set your scene. So when you do Blender Grease Pencil, like it helps you navigate through 3D and find an interesting new angle. So when you have that model, drawing in Grease Pencil lets you set up that composition in a way that's more cleanly readable for the audience or the director that you're trying to submit it to. It lets you really set up a nice polished look while still using 3D to make sure everything looks cohesive and consistent, like continuous with the same set. So I hope you downloaded Blender because we're about to do a really quick demo. And if you're here right now, do you need help downloading Blender? That's okay. That's okay. Okay, let's get into Blender. Can you see that? Okay. Is that yes? Okay, yeah. So here I have Blender, and basically, like, I just have a bunch of 3D models. I can actually just send them to Discord really quickly. No, wait, okay, hold on. I'm just gonna send a couple of models that I found on Sketchfab for anyone who wants to try it into the voice chat. Basically, like, oh no, can people not hear the stream? What does that mean? Okay, well, I hope the recording worked. Anyways, okay. So here's some assets that I found online. So I have like a preliminary like pirate ship. Nope, that's just a V. I'm sorry guys, this is my first time using a Apple OS software. Okay, anyway, so okay, we're back. So when you're in Blender, like this won't mostly be about modeling. It's kind of just how to set up your shots. When you are in Blender, you can find a lot of assets for yourself already, like through Sketchfab, like I did. You can use those to your advantage to kind of navigate through the window and just decide where you want to put your camera. So the easiest way you can just go about drawing on grease pencil is just going here and then navigating to your object and just going Shift A and then just going from there to grease pencil and then blank. There you'll see in your scene collection is grease pencil, and when you go here, you're currently in object mode, so you can't draw anything on it right now. So go to object mode and then draw mode instead, and you'll be able to just freely move around and draw things. Oops. So if I just look really closely, I can draw. My pencil is really small, but I can. Hold on. Okay, well, let's just hope it doesn't kill me. Okay. So my pencil is really small, but I get to draw on the surface of the environment as it is. It's really scratchy, but ignore that. So over here is your size. You can change the size here, or you can. Okay, well, maybe that's what's causing it to. I don't really know why it's not doing it. Okay, well, at least you can come here and change your size accordingly to fix like the aspect ratio of your pen. If you have issues with like geometry, you can change your offset. Basically, that's like when you're drawing on the planes of your environment, it's like trying to catch it on the geometry itself, but sometimes it's like not going to stick to it. I'm gonna try somewhere else. This is not working as I intended. Okay. No. Try this again. Okay, so just going to grease pencil and then blank, going from object mode to draw mode, and then going from selecting surface and then making it offset. No, why isn't it working? I'm going crazy. Oh my god, okay, maybe I was just using the wrong brush. Okay. So sometimes you have issues with like your geo may not catch through the poly as you wanted it to. So offset basically makes it so that you're drawing a little bit above the model that you are using as a reference. So like if I really set the offset to really high, it'll look like the right way when I'm in this perspective right now, but like if I move around, it will look a little bit more like elevated from the model itself. Let's see if I can catch it. Yeah, so like here, like if I look at it more like in line with the plane, it kind of elevates itself from the plane itself. And that's a nice way of making sure that you don't have these issues of it like getting caught on the geo itself. But sometimes, usually, like you can just leave it at a very low scale, and she'll be fine. So when I draw like this, I can do like, kind of contouring the assets as they are, or I can just like design a character through them. Like if I wanted to place objects here, I could draw them in here. But a different way you can go about it is also using a camera. So when you create a camera, that's Shift A. Nope, hold on, let's go back to object mode. Go to Shift A and then camera. And when you have that camera selected, you can click this button here to toggle your camera, or if you have a number pad, you can click 0. And when you make that camera, you'll have this like film gate here that you can't really interact with unless you want to like modify the camera itself. But if you want a different way to move the camera that's more freeform, you can click this button and it locks the camera to wherever you're moving. And that way you can keep it like relative to where you are in space. So when you have that camera, you can set up shots with like your resolution here, and think about like where you want it. And sometimes it can be a little hard to navigate Blender with like if you are used to Maya tools or whatever. But there is a walk feature that you can do by pressing and holding Shift, or sorry, you just press Shift and then the button above Tab is like an apostrophe, the other apostrophe. Anyways, if you press that button, you can enter walk mode, and then as you can see, the controls are beneath, like at the bottom, and you can kind of walk around your scene more freeform in a way very similar to Blender. If you scroll in your middle mouse, you can increase the speed of your model or of your camera movement, or you can shrink it and like slow it down to like a really snail speed. But when you move like this, it lets you just be more specific with where you want your camera. So let's say like if I wanted it here and I really wanted to set up my camera like maybe right there, and that's where I want it, I can unlock it and then kind of get out of the camera here and press Shift Add and create a grease pencil thing again. And if I take that camera and I hold Shift and select the grease pencil with it, I can right click and parent it, and then make sure to select parent without inverse. And when that happens, this pencil is this grease pencil layer is now parented to the camera, which basically means if I come in here and I use the move tool, I can change it to the parent instead, and I can drag it forward a little bit in front of the camera basically. And when I come back into the camera view, I can draw on this grease pencil layer without needing to interact with the geometry, and I can draw with my that's the wrong grease pencil, that's why. Okay, I can draw without needing to interact with the geo as much. That's not right. Oh. You can see that if you draw with things that are just like kind of open in space, it will not know what to do with the geometry, and it'll just kind of scream and cry at you. But that is okay. Let me see if I can fix this real quick. Oh, this wait should be touched. Oh, I tested this out. Oh, there we go. Okay. So basically, when you use this feature, when you like parent your grease pencil to the camera, you don't have to worry about like all this ugly stuff. You can basically set up the scene so that you don't have, so you have a foreground element instead of like inside of the scene. So like if I wanted a character in the foreground, ooh. Maybe I need to just move it a little bit further. Maybe I'm just not setting this up correctly. Anyway, so let's just think about something else really quickly. So if I go back into my camera, why is everything okay? Oh, there we go. Sorry. Okay, so I have this camera angle that I really want, and I want to set up like, so maybe let's focus on the cars. So maybe I want to like focus on this this building specifically. I can use grease pencil, kind of like move out of this frame and just draw on the object itself. So if I go back to my grease pencil, I can use this and kind of contour it the way I want it. Like let's say this sign is like, I don't know, like if we want this to kind of be like a quick diner shop, like we can set the door here and just kind of design the environment as we want it. This sign is too big. So like if we have environments here and we really want to set the environment here, with like windows, and this sign we want to like design to have some kind of like figure on it. Like if we want like a cat here, like, I don't know, it's a mom and pop shop. Let's figure it out. Like it's serving pancakes or whatever. We can design that on the board itself without needing to worry about the external details. And when you give this to someone, it'll also have a grease pencil design on it. So like these designs will all stick to the geometry itself, and you can use that as future reference when you export it out to a layer. When you use this, you can also create like the shillings here. Like if you design that as well, you can put that onto the model itself. These kinds of external contours, if you really want to highlight them, you can do so. If you want to soften, or like kind of, it's not necessarily a straight edge, but it kind of smooths out your line really kind of extremely. You can hold shift when you're drawing, and it kind of snaps a very soft line instead of very like letting it be more freeform. So that's a nice way to get more clean lines when you're trying to draw. If you want to design more about the car, you can kind of have like more kind of contours. If you have like a decal that you want to put on the side of it, you can have like flames on the side of it. And then when I come back into my camera like this, you can see all those details still stay there in a way where I can like maneuver it. So when I have this, let's just say I'm really happy with this, I can go into press F12 to kind of enter your render view. And you'll see like you kind of have a preliminary render of your setup, and I'm not quite happy with how the camera is right now. So if I come into the camera right now and I go to I'm still in drummer. Sorry. So get out of object mode and go to camera. You will see your different your settings for your camera, and you can change like the focal length of it, so you can push it out more or zoom it in more. When you think of like, if you really want to go like extreme, you can really push it out, but otherwise you can kind of set it around like the 37, like a very small numbered range. Basically, focal length is like how much your camera like captures when you take a screenshot. Oh, now you want, okay, that's crazy. So if I want that to be a little bit more extreme, I can push it up more, or I can just reduce it a little bit. If you have issues with your geometry kind of snapping outside of your environment, you can go to the grease pencil and go to view layer, and you can select depth, and basically that's like when you export out grease pencil, it will try and keep all of the grease pencils together, and you'll see behind your geometry. If you press depth, it will try and hide anything that isn't like being shown in front of the camera. So it will hide everything that's behind this wall right here. And if you have like, let's say you wanted to have like a, I'm gonna go to my other model where I have like a ship, and let's say like you have this ship and you kind of want a transparent background. So if I drew really quickly like objects on here, whatever, that's whatever I want. You can go to your render settings and you can change your background to be transparent. So whenever you take an export of your film, you can you won't have like a, oh sorry, that's the wrong camera. So if I make another camera here, and then I look through this camera lens specifically, there we go. You can so like let's say that's what I really want to capture here. And like this background area here that's gray is going to be transparent when I export it out if I have the transparency option toggled. So that's really nice, like if you have an environment that you kind of don't need the background for, or you want to like kind of use what you've drawn on your object as a setup for your your render, and you want to keep that line art there, you can use this and you don't have to worry about like having to mask it out later in your drawing software of choice. So I want to kind of show like how I use this in my own method where I had an environment that I needed to do for a class. And I was like, I really wanted to do something really quick and really easy where I can set up the block out for myself and then use that as a base for my draw over. I can so let's see. So I had this space set up, right, as my base, like where I modeled it. I modeled it in Maya because I'm just more comfortable with that. And you can import models by going into like File, import. Oh my god, I'm so sorry, I didn't do this earlier. But if you go into Import and then FBX, you can take all the models that you find on Sketchfab or anything and import them in. And if you have like an exported file from Maya, you can take that as well. And basically, when you import that as well, you can. Let's just show this as well. You can import that FBX, and it'll come in as a design in your Blender file. The reason why it's all glitchy like this is because there's two of them. Okay, never mind. Okay. But yeah, basically, like, importing is really not the hardest thing. It's just using it in a way that it sets up your set, like your style. So like all these models can just be easily accessed either online, or you can create them yourself, like as I did. So basically, when I decided I wanted to do this environment, I was like, okay, I don't really want to decide how to set dress this just on the fly. Like I want to put it on a model so I can think about it in 3D space when I have to render it myself. So I took my grease pencil and I just drew over my environment and just kind of decided where things were going to be and how I wanted it to be in scale of everything else. And if I had like, for example, like I blocked out these bookshelves and I really wanted some like set dressed objects on top of the table, so I kind of marked out where they would be, and then I could draw them out in Photoshop as I wanted from there. You can also like do a little bit of the hatching for the book, the wood, like the firewood. And then again, like when I exported this out for myself, I took the camera that I created, and then let's see if I get the camera. Whoa, that is incredibly far away. So if I use walk, I can. Where the hell did I go? Okay. if I lock my camera and I use walk, I can move the camera a little closer to my model. This is going incredibly fast for some reason. Jesus, slow down. Okay. I can use this camera to kind of set where I want this to be. And then once I have this camera locked into place and I don't really want it to move anywhere, it's a really nice way to like make sure that you have something to back yourself on when you like need to make modifications, and you don't have to take the same screenshot and try to align it back to your original camera setup. You just have that camera there, and as long as you keep it like where it is and you don't modify it, you can have that forever. So if I go back to this camera and I want to get rid of the background, I just go to here and I click transparent, and then for anything that I have that is like grease pencil lines that I don't want that is overlapping with other things, I go to my view layer, and then I go to passes, data, and then depth, and I click that. And then when I render this, hopefully, let's set up a light real quick. So lights are added by doing Shift A and then light. And if you do like sunlight, point light, or area light, there are different intensities that you can modify in the light modifier here. So like, let's say if I really wanted it to have a color, I could add that there, but I don't for now. Actually, maybe I do. But I would just want to see what it looks like with the light in place. So I will do F12. And I can kind of see what the light is doing to my render right now. It's okay. It's a little like the shadows are just too strong from where it's at. So I will probably move it to the side here. And if you press G, you will have this kind of freeform movement, and it's not the greatest because you can't really tell which X, Y, or Z coordinate it's trying to move to. So you can press X, Y, or Z to lock it onto those axes. Or if you want, you can do what is like, you can exclude one of the axes and use only two of them. And by doing that, you can press Shift, X, Y, or Z. And basically what that says is use the two axes that isn't the one I just pressed. So if I want it to be like on the X and Y plane, I just press Shift Z and it moves in the space that is only in the X and Y coordinates. And I think that's really helpful for anybody who's like trying to make sure their their model is clean and like stays within like horizontal increments. So if I click this like yellow bulb that's like attached to the sun, it kind of sets the direction of where I want this to go. So let's say I wanted to angle it here. Maybe here we can add a little bit of a temperature in, like let's say it's a little bit more red. We can press F12 again, and we can see how that would look like through the camera. Okay, it's definitely a lot more red. So I think this is definitely an improvement. I think maybe the sun can be a little bit more. The sun can be a little bit more bright, so we can change the strength here or a little bit of the exposure. Maybe let's try like 0.5, and then maybe that sun will be a little stronger. Okay, that's definitely an improvement. I think the shadows are a little strong, but if I want to, I can just add a secondary light as well. So I can come here and make a second light, like an area light here, and basically this like binding box is kind of like the area is trying to impact. So if I move that around, so press R to rotate it, and if I want it to be on the Y-axis, I press nope. If I wanted to impact it on the X-axis, I press X, and I move it around. So let's see if that makes any difference. It is a little big, so it may not do a lot. Okay, that's a little better. It's definitely like overexposed, but at least the shadows are better. But like if you add lights, you can tweak this for hours and it'll get you to your intended result. Lights are a nice way to get like those shadows for you to render off of. Like let's say if I wanted it to be in a different location, I can change that, and I can have the lighting be more like from above. Let's just have this for now. The sun can be from a different location, and we would get an entirely different lighting setup from our first one, which is really nice for like the light and day things that you saw from Ari Zaritsky. Like if you want to set up different times of day, you can use these like the geo itself to kind of set up the lighting for yourself without much hassle. So, oh, maybe it needs to be a little lower. Actually, sunlight is a little different because it's like gonna come from the top, so it's always gonna try and give you something that's very high up. So let's see if I can move the area light to somewhere a little bit more impactful. So if I move it here and it's like behind my set, the exposure is going to be really weak, but we can change that to be a little stronger. When I light it from the back, it should look a little different. Oh, maybe it's just, this is way too big. Oh, and it's also coming from both. Okay, so let's move that a little bit downwards. Maybe rotate it a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, a little bit more angled that way. That way this light should be hitting from behind. And now let's see what happens. Okay, yeah. See, the light is very different now. A little grainy. I don't know. But if we fix that later, like we can see that the light is coming from a completely new direction. And if we wanted to, I could cut out the window and make that like a way that the light can pass through my object, and that's a nice way to add like different window lightings. Okay, I'm realizing we're close on time, so does anybody have questions? Go ahead.
Would you say it's beneficial to jump back and forth between modeling and the
Whoa!
Oh, I pressed the wrong button.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah. Would you say it's beneficial to jump back and forth between modeling and the grease pencil?
Like, are you saying to do grease pencil intermittently with your model?
Yeah, like modeling and then grease penciling, and then go back to modeling.
I think that's a good idea if you want to. Like, I modeled in Maya, so I didn't have that issue of like, oh, do I grease pencil while I'm modeling? I think it's like, it's up to what you think needs attention at that moment. So if you are modeling in Blender, you can decide like, I want to contour it right now. Like, it doesn't matter. In the end, like, you'll have the same desired result. It's just like, think about what needs time and what doesn't need time. Like, if your blockout has like the interior details that you want, you can just do that really quickly. I think it matters more like, I don't think it actually matters that much. Yeah, just think about like what will save you time, because like I wanted to just block out this window really quickly, so I was like, I know the scale of the window when I draw it out for myself, and not needing to do it in perspective and think about how that would like work. If it saves you time when you move outside of 3D, that's something you should consider. Does that maybe answer your question? Okay. Well, I hope the people online got something out of this.
What was it when you were in the grease pencil to make the line work closer to the
Oh, okay. So if you, the question was, how do I make the lines closer to the surface? So if I go to grease pencil and I use draw mode, you can go to like change the size, but the thing that you're asking is surface, and then that's offset. And so like offset of 1 will change it so that it's like a little bit above your object, and if you set it to 0, it's trying to do it directly on it. So that's why like you might want to try offsetting it, because if your geometry is too big or your pencil is too small or whatever reason it is, it'll start trying to clip into the geometry itself, and that's why you might not see it. So letting that, like having an offset lets you make sure that you don't have that issue, or you can just try and mitigate it as much as possible, because it'll be close enough to the geometry where you don't need to worry about it.
Is that for the new strokes that you're going to put down, or does that alter the strokes?
It's for the new strokes that you put down. I think there's one. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think this is great to help match out the window, and we have it for really specific objects, but we don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Yeah. if I were to do the thing like where I was kit bashing, like I said earlier, I could take the things I found on Sketchfab and modify them to make my scene more like set dressed. Like if I were to want this environment to kind of be not just its one standalone thing, I could go to Sketchfab and or whatever place you want to find your models and just kind of populate this area with like different objects. If I didn't feel like modeling that, which I don't, so
Yeah,
um,
it's great that you can like design the places for those, and then as kind of a step in the pipeline, and then if you want to draw them later, or if you want to find models, you can
mhm.
find those models.
Yeah. Actually, let me show it. Let me see if I can open my other file. Or oh wait, let me see. Let me just try this. Okay, yeah. So back to the wonky ship. Let's just pretend it's not wonky. I just model in Maya, so I just prefer like how it looks to me. Oh, if you have these like dotted lines that you don't like and it looks ugly to you, which fair enough. You can go here and you can get rid of them. So you can get rid of like the relationship lines. That's what it's called. And it'll no longer affect your life. So that is nice to know, because it can probably be a little annoying to have that and just want to keep a clean model. So anyways, if I like draw on this right now, and I make a grease pencil layer and I try and draw on it as is. I know I was having some issues with like the offset. Just gonna walk myself a little closer to the edge. So if I left this offset at 0, I was running into issues where I was just not drawing anything on here. But if I set it to 1, okay, I'm still having issues. Let's see. Oh, it's coming. It's trying to lock onto something else. Interesting. Let me see if I can move it. Oh, yeah. Maybe the offset was too much. Let's see. Or maybe it's just not trying to connect to the model itself in the first place. Let me see if it's just... Uh-oh. I don't know why it doesn't like my model all of a sudden. But I was having this issue when I was trying to draw on the surface itself. A lot. Because sometimes it would be like, oh, the way I modeled it, for some reason, it just... The detailing on it, on like the sides of the ship were just too confusing for the model, and so it was just like, I don't really want to put anything there. So I'd have to offset it so it kind of like didn't have to be on the geometry itself. So that was a nice way of like making sure that I didn't have those issues. Okay, well, it's does anyone online have questions? Can anyone online even hear me? I don't know. I mean, I hope it's recorded. To my dismay, but I think it's like hopefully people got something out of it, even if like they have to check the YouTube later. But I hope it was helpful. And yeah. Okay. Well, I think that is mostly all I have to show about Grease Pencil. A lot of it is really, like I said, just tweaking and seeing things that you want to try out. But hopefully it like kind of boosts your workflow and letting you have these options for yourself, like lets you decide if you really want to try 3D whenever you want. Because I know for me, sometimes I'm like, I need something to do that isn't drawing every now and then. And doing 3D helps me like not need to be bogged down like, oh, I need to make sure my foundational skills are good enough to do what I'm trying to do. So that kind of mindset helps kind of even me out a little bit more. So yeah. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, then thank you for attending. I sure hope people